Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Swoon-Worthy, a podcast about movies and series set in different time periods. I'm Carly, and today my sister Kayla and I are highlighting a more recent time period, the 60s, which is the setting for Sofia Coppola's latest movie, Priscilla. Now, it seems like the past few years has brought a renewed interest in Elvis Presley, Priscilla Prseley and their family. Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter, starred and sang in a fun series that I know my sister and I both really enjoyed. It's called Daisy Jones and the Six. Lisa Marie, the only child of Priscilla and Elvis, sadly passed away in January of 2023. Just a couple days after attending the Golden Globes and seeing Austin Butler win the Golden Globe for playing her father, Elvis Presley, in Baz Luhrmann's epic film, Elvis. But today, we're here to focus and talk about Priscilla Presley's story. Sofia Coppola turned Priscilla's 1985 memoir into Priscilla, a movie released in the fall of last year, which, as of this month, March 2024, is streaming on Max and Mubi. Priscilla executive produced the film. Kaylee Spaney stars in the title role and did a phenomenal job. She won the Venice Film Festival Best Actress Award for this. And Jacob Elordi, Kayla's recent favorite actor, plays Elvis Presley. Now, Kayla, our first podcast episode was based on Sofia's Marie Antoinette from 2006. That's always been one of our favorite movies to watch together, and we've always been super fans of all of Sofia Coppola's work. What are your thoughts on her latest film?
You know, Elvis has never been my favorite human. So I knew Sofia would do a great job because she always does, but I didn't know if it was going to really, touch me in a way that most of her movies do. So I wasn't that excited. I didn't run out and see it in theaters or anything. But it's been recently added to streaming, and so I decided to give it a watch, and I was definitely, it didn't surprise me that I would enjoy the visual aspects of the movie, or the music, but I got to see the life of Priscilla, who I had only heard about a little bit. I've known her name and I've known her face, but I've never really thought much about her life, as I'm sure a lot of people haven't. She's been in Elvis's shadow her whole life. And so I think it's just really cool that Sofia chose her to make a movie of, because Sofia Coppola has always been great about championing women's stories and voices. So it's very, now it all just makes sense to me now that I've seen it. I'm like, this is just perfect. And so I've seen it multiple times already, back to back. It's definitely up there in the list of her movies for me, which I'm surprised about, pleasantly surprised. And I think it put a stamp on her style and aesthetic as a film creator, as a director and writer. It just fits right in. And it's almost, you kind of get the same feelings and scenarios from the Virgin Suicides. I get a little bit of that in this movie. I get a little bit of Marie Antoinette, a little bit, and then Lost in Translation. And so it's just been really cool to see Sofia mature as a filmmaker, and she's just so unique as a filmmaker. I hear a lot from people about how, her dad helped her or whatever. She's only here because of her dad. But at the end of the day, it's like, that doesn't matter, because she's so unique and she's brought so many amazing films to the film industry that taking that into the equation just doesn't matter at this point, because she's needed there.
Well said, Kayla. And I'm sorry, I know you're a little under the weather, but we really wanted to just do this podcast. We've been wanting to do this one for a while. So thanks for sticking with us. Now, I read in Sofia's archives book that she published recently that she was afraid Priscilla was going to be too similar to some of her other work, particularly Marie Antoinette. But she felt in the end that she did the story justice. She was truly in her element. So exactly what you said, it is reminiscent of her other work. You can see sort of like her signature scenes and and of course her signature pink aesthetic and soft aesthetic. But as a standalone movie, it's really, really beautiful in our opinion.
I was just gonna say, I think it's really cool because it's almost like there's a Sofia Coppola multiverse. Or like they're all connected. Kind of like people have said Wes Anderson's are all connected. I don't
And
know that
Pixar movies.
there's something there.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, we're going to jump into some of the scenes in detail a bit, but let's start from the beginning and start talking about Kaylee Spaney's performance, which won her the Venice Film Festival Best Actress Award. She is a relative newcomer to the screen. Not many people have seen her before this, and she's quite young. She was 25 when she made this, but then she had to span the time period of, you know, age 14 to age 28, right? And she does it so well. We start out in 1959, West Germany, where Priscilla meets Elvis, and she's very young. Very young. You see some of that 50s style in her clothing. She's adorable, you know, I love that first dress that she wears. It's like a pale blue when she meets Elvis, and she had already been kind of trying to figure out what to wear to go meet him. Not my Easter dress, she said. And the costumes are by Stacy Batot, and I think they're really, really stunning in this. And we'll talk about it throughout the movie. It's a coming of age story. Okay, so she's very young, and you see her, she's quite reserved and calm, composed young lady, but then yet Kaylee Spaney brings such a beautiful performance. She's very expressive still, and you can just see behind her intelligent eyes what she's thinking and feeling.
Kaylee Spaney, she definitely stole the show, which she was supposed to. I think she did a wonderful job. Yeah, she shows Priscilla's maturity because I feel like you can just tell Priscilla, she's definitely more of a type of introverted type of person, and she's just quiet, cool, calm, and collected all the time. And because she takes her time to think, before she speaks. And I think Kaylee Spaney, she's probably similar to that. I don't know, but
Yeah.
did a great job. But we can't not talk about Jacob Elordi.
Yes. So I love how they introduce Elvis. He's sitting on the couch. He's in this home party setting in Germany where he was serving time in the military, in the army. It's been said that he was lonely over there. He got sick at one point because they had to go stay out overnight in the freezing cold. I mean, it just seemed like a weird situation coming from being such a superstar, a megastar. And then he's here. He just lost his mother, who he's very close with. And I think that, so my interpretation from reading, I read Priscilla's book. I do think that he was happy to have someone to talk to, an American. He was in a foreign country, and they were able to bond over that. I know you might have a different impression of their relationship because we all have our own opinions. I'm an Elvis fan. Kayla's not an Elvis fan. And I'm not saying, he was a great person all around, but at this time I can see perhaps their first meeting being somewhat sincere and authentic. I don't know. What do you think?
Jacob Elordi, his face is so similar to Elvis, I would say, like way more than any other actors has ever been. But but he's definitely very tall, and then she's also Kaylee Spaney is a little too short. Mm-hmm. But I think that was definitely intentional, and I thought that was a great move. Like I'm sure a lot of people don't. They don't. I think I've heard some people don't like that because they love Elvis and everything. But I think that just is perfect symbolism for, like, at the end of the day, she was a mature little girl, but she was a little girl, and he was a grown man, and he was very powerful. So, I mean, what better way to say that without having to say it? You know what I mean?
Well, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. But I did notice the height difference, of course. And yeah, so then moving along in the story, you see Priscilla being as any young teenager would be when she had a crush. She's kind of not being able to pay attention in school. I love she wears this soft Sophia pink fuzzy sweater and her choker necklace, and she's just bored in school and thinking about Elvis for a couple of years while he goes back to America. And then finally he calls her kind of out of the blue, and they arrange a trip for her to come visit him. And she argues with her parents a bit. She's pretty persistent and wants to go visit him. And we finally get to see Graceland, the home Elvis built in Memphis. Now, the set of Graceland was built in Toronto, and I think they did a good job. It looks authentic, so very cool, and true to the time period. And I have a theory that I want to share that ties to our usual period drama topics. I kind of think of it as like, okay, so I'm going to dig into this a bit. So Elvis is the king of rock and roll, right? To me, he is very much relatable in my eyes to Louis the 14th. Louis Couture is the Sun King who built Versailles. He has, his entourage, and then instructed people in Versailles, the court in Versailles, they had to follow strict rules and what to wear and how to act and etiquette. And I'm like, did Elvis Presley like pick up a book about the king and say, I want to do this. I want to be like this? Because he had his Memphis Mafia, his entourage. He built Graceland. And I feel like it kind of feels like he almost did select Priscilla as like to be his queen. We'll never know the true feelings behind that, or the true intentions, their motives, other than what Priscilla wrote in her book and whatnot. But it kind of feels like back in the time period when kings would select the perfect queen to, I don't know. Do you get that? Do you see where I'm going with this?
I think that's a great analogy. I mean, I personally think he chose a girl that kind of looked like the female version of him and made her look as much like him as possible.
Yeah,
But,
it's true.
there's lots of different theories out there. Who knows, I guess. But yeah, he's definitely reminiscent of Louis the 14th.
Exactly what you said. So he did want her to look like him with the jet black hair, more makeup. He kind of instructs her, blue is your color. Don't wear prints because it takes away from your look. And there's this whole montage scene. Now, I love a good makeover montage in a movie. I'm thinking Clueless, The Princess Diaries. And in this one, Priscilla gets her hair done, her makeup amplified. I love a good makeover scene. But even though it was kind of not really her choice, really her willingness. I mean, she was young, she was impressionable, and she did change her look for him, and she clearly states that in the book. But the scene is good and the music and the style, you can't beat the 60s style. So I'm kind of torn.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, or I wanted to say about this movie is I love it so much because for number one, it's Sofia Coppola made it and it's got her stamp on it. But also I've always loved the 60s style, like late 60s makeup and hair and costumes and everything. So combining that with Sofia Coppola is just so epic. And this movie I think it's gonna stand the test of time.
Yes, and Sophia has done movies across so many time periods. There's The Virgin Suicides, which is set in the 1970s. Marie Antoinette, set in the late 18th century. The Beguiled, which was set during the US Civil War or Victorian time period. We have The Bling Ring, which is very early aughts, right? The early 2000s. And we know she can do modern contemporary movies, from Lost in Translation to On the Rocks. So she's really done movies set in all different time periods. She does them very well, but still with her own unique signature style. Now, we always love Sophia's soundtracks. We always rave about them, especially Marie Antoinette. We mentioned that in our very first podcast episode. And in this one, Sophia was not able to get the rights to any of the Elvis songs, which is fine. And she relied on the music of the time period.
Yes. And, I think that worked out for her benefit. And, she may have just wanted that anyway. Maybe they checked to see if they could use a few here and there, but I feel like that's what she intended anyway, because this is about Priscilla. It's not about Elvis. And he did have he sang some songs. I don't know if they were his, or it's just cool that she was able to like make it like, because it felt like, thinking back, I'm like, well, I think I did hear Elvis music, or I think I did hear him sing.
Mhm.
And that's just so cool that she can do that kind of thing. She's so musical with her style, like the way she embeds music. It just adds so much to the movies, and it's just so amazing. And I think it was perfect that it wasn't focused on his music at all.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Music supervised by Phoenix. So her husband, Thomas Mars, is the lead singer of that band. And so there's always the Phoenix influence in the song choices and song supervision. Crimson and Clover is one of my favorite songs, and it's in there by Tommy James and the Shondells. When she goes over to LA later in the film, we get that Oye, como va by Tito Puente, which is kind of a fun transitional song there. Um, and at the end, we get the classic Dolly Parton, I Will Always Love You. And that has history because that was a song between Elvis and Priscilla that Elvis would always sing to her. And Elvis tried to record the version of Dolly Parton's song, but Colonel Tom Parker, Dolly Parton wouldn't allow Colonel Tom Parker to have rights to that song, which was, probably a good, a good reason. But I Will Always Love You. When they do get divorced, they exit the courthouse, and he's saying that to Priscilla because they still had a history. But anyway, so the songs are beautiful, very soft, especially in the beginning. Love them. And then my only wish is that there had been a Lana Del Rey song, because people have often drawn the comparison between Lana's style and Priscilla Prseley. Like, that's just always been an influence in her fashion and makeup and hair and style. And so I would have personally, and I know other people agree, would have loved a Lana Del Rey song in this movie. But anyways, that's just my little end rant.
Oh yeah. Or maybe in the end credits or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or where I would have put it is, there's that scene where Priscilla's feeling very alone in Graceland, and she's looking out the window, and they're kind of zooming out, and it's just some instrumental music, and I was like, this could have been where the Lana song went. But anyways, that's just my
Um,
personal little take.
that might have looked too much like a music video, though. You're
Let me
right.
have that one, because I love Lana and I love Priscilla's
But I
style.
loved
So
that scene where she's looking at the window. Like, it's beautiful. Like the cinematography there is.
yeah, no, I love that. It kind of reminds me of when Marie Antoinette's looking out the windows of Versailles. A few other Marie Antoinette, Priscilla similarity scenes, when Priscilla's walking down the hall, and um she's in this is when she's already in Memphis, and she's going to a Catholic school there. She's still 17 or 18, and she's walking down the hall, and people are gossiping around her, the schoolgirls, about, oh yeah, Elvis is dating her, whatever. And they're whispering. And that's like direct from Marie Antoinette when she's walking down
Yeah.
the Hall of Mirrors and people are gossiping. It's like, oh, I
Oh,
love
I
this.
know. I love that. And also so Priscilla was like maybe the second time she was at in the army at his house, and there were those girls there, and they kind of whispered, they're like, she looks like a little girl or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, that's at Graceland when she comes to live with him finally.
Like
And
walking up the stairs or something.
yes, and yeah, she looks like a little girl. And that's just,
And Marie Antoinette, she's like, she looks like a little piece of cake.
yes, the ants in the Marie Antoinette movie. You're right. And then, okay, one more, maybe one more. Um, Signature shot from Sofia is a young woman looking out the window of a car or a carriage. And we get that. And it's just so perfect. We see that in Scarlett Johansson and Lost in Translation, looking out at Tokyo, Marie Antoinette in her carriage. I'm sure there's a couple others. That to me is like iconic scenes from.
People describe her as like the gilded sad girl vibes, you know?
Yeah, Sophia specializes in coming of age stories, young women trapped in a gilded cage.
Gilded adolescence.
Ooh. Yes, because they may have some privilege, or they're in a situation where they're not like down on their luck or hard up for money. They're, they're in a nice situation, but they're still feeling pain and loneliness. So it's very expressed in this movie when she's waiting. Elvis is always off filming and stuff. Okay. So yeah, so I read the memoir. I have it right next to me. So those of you who are watching the video, you can see it, but those listening to the podcast, you may not. There are pictures and there's direct words from Priscilla's mouth about her story. And it's a great read. It's not too difficult. It's fun. Highly recommend the book. And you get a sense for everything we've said. She definitely felt lonely. She felt like she was still learning about herself and her own personality, but then she had Elvis's personality and his critiques and his his wishes for her kind of crowding her out there. But at the same time, I do feel like the book has a bit more love in it, a bit more lightheartedness and fun. They did build a life together. They, at one point, I think they said one of her favorite memories was riding horses with Elvis. They bought a ranch. But you can't put all of that into a movie. I understand that. And there was, a bit of a purpose for this movie. But I do like the book, and I do like, I still do like Elvis as a performer, but I do see why he was not, his personal life and his real true self has not necessarily been exposed maybe until now. And
well, yeah, I think
until the book.
His music is obviously very, a lot of people love it and it speaks to them and it's stood the test of time. But I think, people were caught up in everything at that time. And I think just in retrospect, people are now, looking back and being like, wow, that kind of was a little questionable, the things he did or the way he lived in certain ways. But it is what it is, and it's in the past. And now we get beautiful movies like this to reflect on.
It's true. It's true. And Sofia, in her archives book, she even said it was a different time period. We have to always note that. Okay, so Kayla, I know that the focus is Priscilla. We're going to keep talking about Priscilla, but maybe I just talk a little bit about the other Elvis movie, because otherwise it's just a big elephant in the room. So a couple years ago, Baz Luhrmann made an Elvis movie. Now, Baz Luhrmann, Australian director, one of my favorite directors, other than Sofia, he might be one of my favorites. I mean, from Strictly Ballroom, Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, one of my top 3 favorite films, and Great Gatsby. So he has a very unique style too. Lots of fast scenes, great music in his scenes as well, glamour, dazzling. And he made the Elvis movie. I actually love the Elvis movie. I've seen it multiple times, saw it in theaters. And I think this movie does Elvis the performer, Elvis the musician, Elvis the artist justice. It's very much focused on Elvis's life. Priscilla is only a small part in the movie. And what's interesting is the parts with Priscilla where they meet in West Germany in the Elvis movie, and then they go back to America, they get married, he starts making most of his 31 movies. There's this like quick montage scene, and then it cuts to him doing his comeback era. So it's almost like there's a gap in the Baz Luhrmann film, which is perfect for then the Priscilla movie, because that's really when you get this movie. It's almost like perfect. Baz Luhrmann does the Elvis performer, megastar, and we get the personal, not as nice version of Elvis in this movie. And it's like, even Sofia herself, I saw her in a video say this would be a good double feature. And I agree. I think it's great. So that's my end of rant. I like both movies. I do think Austin Butler did a fantastic job as Elvis, but I also brought one of my Elvis records beside me too, along with Priscilla's book, just to show, there's always multiple stories, sides to the stories, and nothing's black and white, and you can appreciate art and music.
My turn for my rant, okay. Yeah, I agree that the other Elvis movie by Baz Luhrmann is more of an outwardly perspective of his caricature of Elvis. And yeah.
I know. Well, I don't think it was a caricature because I think Colonel Parker was also a focus of that movie, and he was done as a caricature. And like that whole financial abuse by his manager, Tom Parker, was also an untold story, by the way. So that was an interesting story. Not as many people were familiar with. So okay, Kayla and I are, on different sides of the opinions here. But okay.
Well, I think no.
Back to Priscilla. So costumes. Let's talk about some more costumes in Priscilla by Stacey Batat. I was, a little sad this didn't get like an Oscar nomination or something. I think it was so perfectly done. I love her choker necklace, the black choker with the gold heart. We see, the late 50s style transitioning into the 60s. When she goes, I love the scene where she and Elvis go to Vegas, and she wears that blue sort of one shoulder off the shoulder dress, and her hair's done up. She looks a bit more mature in that. But then she still, of course, is quite young. So that's really pretty. And then they waltz out of the casino, and she's wearing like a cute little midriff number, and it's just so cute. Some of the costumes are direct from Priscilla's true wardrobe. So yeah. Well, no, I mean direct replicas of her true.
I was like, whoa, that's so cool.
Sorry, direct replicas. So she wore, when they're watching the comeback special, she's wearing this white dress with a big black bow. That's the real ensemble. The wedding dress, of course. The whole wedding scene is spot on. It looks exactly like the photographs in the video. Love her wedding dress look.
Yeah, I know. I loved the wedding scene. It was so iconic and cool. I looked at pictures of the real wedding, and the only main difference I saw was that the cake, it looked like it had red rosebuds on it, and it said Elvis and Priscilla on it. She didn't put that on the cake in the movie for some reason.
Maybe it just yeah,
I don't know.
It would have drawn our eyes. Another thing is that when it's kind of later in the 60s, after they were already married and had baby Lisa Marie, she's wearing that purple peasant top and the purple pants, and they're taking like family portraits, and Elvis is sitting in a chair. It's like he's sitting on a throne with his cane and his sunglasses. Like that's another just prime example of him being in a king-like image with her on the side. I love that look. And by that time in the 60s, you can kind of see Priscilla has lost some interest in Elvis's, preferences and maybe how he would have had her look, because she stops dyeing her hair jet black. And she's wearing less makeup, and she's becoming more of her own person.
Her prefrontal cortex has come into play.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and I almost forgot. I love the scene. Lisa Marie was born exactly 9 months the day after their wedding. And I love that scene where, okay, I'm having the baby, let's go. And you just see her standing there calmly putting on her makeup and her falsies. Like that scene is so well done by Kaylee Spaney. I love it. Oh my gosh. So yeah, costumes, fantastic. Music, always impeccable in Sofia's films.
Yeah, and I love Jacob Elordi's Elvis voice. I think he did such a great job for only knowing Elvis through Lilo and Stitch, which is it's just so opposite from Austin Butler, who still can't get rid of his accent.
I heard he did see a dialect coach and got rid of it finally. Austin Butler had to reverse his voice back to normal. But hey, got to give it to him for being in character. Okay, so you said you liked, I think Jacob Elordi did a great job. Looks the part. I feel like sometimes he relied a bit on like a stutter instead of doing like the true Elvis voice. I don't know. I found a little bit, because I am such a fan of the Austin Butler performance. I don't think he was quite as strong as Elvis, but I think he was good. And it was the focus is Priscilla in this. So I think he did a good job, but that he did kind of be a little more subtle and in the background and let Priscilla and Kaylee Spaney really, steal the show, which is how it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but actors, I don't ever feel like actors have to look or be exactly like, the
Mm-hmm.
person. I feel as long as they've got that same energy, that's
Yeah.
all I need, really.
Yeah. Another thing to talk about, I think the first half of the movie is perfect. I love watching the first half of the movie. I feel like it did get a bit like a broken record, like where Elvis is kind of having his temper tantrums and a bit too much of that in sequence. Whereas in the book, they lived together for a long time. I don't think it was that quite like that. I mean, I think there was good times thrown in with the bad times. And then I would have loved more of her independence, even more of her focus on she goes to LA. It kind of the ending feels a bit rushed to me where she does start to learn um taekwondo or whatever, and she ends up, I think, having a relationship with her instructor in real life. And I just would have loved even more to see her on her own. It's almost like there should be a sequel, because Priscilla did go on and really live her own life after calling it quits with Elvis, and she became an actress herself in a few movies. And I don't know, I would have loved to see more, but you can't. I think Sofia didn't want to make a 3-hour movie. She wanted to make more of a 2-hour movie, which is cool.
I agree. I think seeing Priscilla like older, maybe in the 70s more, that would have been cool. But at the end of the day, I still think this movie was spot on. I loved everything about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so yeah, in the book, it starts out with Priscilla getting the phone call that Elvis has died, and she's trying to think, how do I break the news to Lisa Marie? So, like, I think there could have been some more scenes in there to explore, and it would have really shown Kaylee Spaney's amazing acting. So, it's just our different, it's just our take on, we would have liked to see more of Priscilla, really, I think.
I would have liked the movie if it barely had Elvis in it at all.
Looking like I thought you would. Um, okay, fair enough. So this is our take on the Priscilla movie, and it's very true to Sofia Coppola's style and aesthetic. It's a perfect movie in her career, I think. And I can't wait to see what other movies Sofia Coppola does in the future.
I know. I like look at her IMDb page like every few months just to see if there's something new on the horizon. Is that weird?
Not weird at all. I'm with you. I remember there was one time where she was going to make a Little Mermaid, and I
Oh,
think that would have been so good. I think Elle Fanning could have done a good.
was Elle Fanning
I
in
don't
it?
know. Maybe it's just in my memory, or I don't know, but it could have been good.
Was it gonna be more
And
like the fairy tale version of
I think so. I think so. Not the Disney version, like the Hans Christian Andersen version, but Elle Fanning would have been great for that. Elle Fanning went on to do Aurora, but she's done so many Sophia collaborations, The Beguiled and Somewhere. I love how Sophia uses some of the same actresses. So Kristen Dunst is always in her movies, Elle Fanning, and there's this really newly released photo of the four ladies. So Kirsten Dunst, Elle Fanning, Sofia Coppola, and Kaylee Spaney, and it's really cool to see them together. You'll have to look that up. Um, I just want, yeah, I think Kayla, you and I, we want more Sophia films.
definitely in the 60s too. Like it fits so well with her style.
Agreed. 60s, 70s. She hasn't done 80s. That could be good too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, and 90s. Yeah. Lost in Translation will always be one of my favorites. I think you said the same. Yeah. So, in summary, we have a brilliant movie by the iconic Sofia Coppola in her signature style and aesthetic. I know I've said that many times, that phrase, but it's just because it's so true with Sofia Coppola's films. And this Priscilla movie, we get a unique story, a unique viewpoint that hadn't been as popular as her husband's. And she really, came into her own. She broke out of, an environment, a situation that she ended up not being happy with. And she showed a lot of courage. Priscilla did. And yeah, a huge fan of her as a person. And not to mention her really cool 60s, 70s style that we get to see a bit of in this movie. We were able to focus on a different time period that we haven't yet talked about, the 60s. Let us know. Did you like us talking about a more recent time period? Do you want us to do similar things, roaring 20s, maybe some more 60s Mad Men esque style genres? So let us know. I don't know. It was fun. And please subscribe to us on Instagram, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, Patreon, where we have the videos of us recording these podcasts, as well as other fun things like polls and graphics and all that good stuff. We really appreciate your support so far in our first season of doing this Swoon-Worthy podcast. And we feel like the period drama community is always so kind and welcoming. I've known it for a while with my period drama style Instagram account. It was such a good, I think Kayla and I were so happy that we decided to make our podcast about movies more period drama specific. And we want to build up that community on Patreon and keep doing it on Instagram. So thank you. Yeah, we look forward to doing this some more.
Yeah, we love seeing everybody's comments, especially on Instagram. Everybody's so insightful, and then you get so many people that have unique connections about through the movies, through family or whatever. So
Mhm.
that's just so cool to we can all share that together.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do a podcast on any other topic, really. I mean, this is just perfect. So, yeah, so I hope you enjoyed my sister's take on the movie, my take on the movie, our opinions and insights into the film. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of Priscilla. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next time.